If we have this disavowal of the nuclear deal, which we were anticipating to a certain extent, how will Tehran react once it's finally official?
Well, I think a lot of officials in Tehran, like many of us, were obviously expecting a position like this from Donald Trump. But I think what it also does, it kind of underlines this kind of policy of keeping things deliberately vague and ambiguous that Donald Trump has kind of had since he first took office. And so immediately, I'm not sure whether we're going to see a reaction perhaps tonight in Tehran, but over the next few days, we're probably going to see some of that strong rhetoric that's been coming out from Tehran over the past week, and that's been repeating some of these lines about making sure that the Iranian strategic interest in the region is a priority. Obviously, that's what the Iranians are going to say. We've heard them say things like the Americans need to take their bases out of the region, back within a certain radius of Iran's ballistic positions. They'll probably repeat these lines again until later on. I think we'll see a kind of more measured response from the Iranian government. But right now, this statement that we've had, this statement of disavowal, is a couple of steps behind from actual decertification, and in some ways that works to the advantage of the Iranians, because it underscores this idea that they've been promoting, that the Trump administration doesn't have a position, it doesn't really know what it wants to do, and it's keeping things deliberately vague.
And this statement of disavowal, how will it be received by the other nations, China, Russia, UK, France and Germany?
I'm guessing with frustration, because obviously they've made huge efforts recently. We've seen from Macron, we've seen from the Germans, efforts to really discourage and dissuade the US from decertification and from triggering a process that would eventually lead to their de facto withdrawal from the deal. I think this statement of disavowal stops from doing that, but what it does is that it keeps the nuclear deal on this kind of even keel of uncertainty. And for businessmen, businesswomen, businesses in general, that's not a good thing. They obviously, they want to work in an environment of certainty and trust. And I think the Europeans want that as well. And this obviously doesn't work in the favor of that kind of situation.
And John, I guess this is a gamble that Congress will give his administration. Trump more time to pressure other nations for new constraints on Iran. Is it a big gamble?
Well, I think the other European countries have been very clear that they are going to, they are going to follow this. They're going to stick with the deal no matter what the U.S. Says. But as Golnar was saying, if you're a businessman, if you're a company thinking of investing in Iran, this is a huge. That's where the gamble is. Do you really dare continue with the planned investments in Iran? Probably if you're doing short-term turnarounds, like selling them airlines and airplanes, that might be okay. But if you're getting into more complex business relationships, like in banking and other areas like that, you might be much more. You're probably going to be much more reluctant now. There's all that much more uncertainty about getting further entangled in a country that might be on the blacklist again pretty soon.